scoring a 100 in anatomy and physiology. Baby, you better go use the internet, babes. What are we? What are we? What are we? We Gen Z, baby. We use the internet. Okay. I'm back. Anyways, in today's video, as y'all can see by the title, we're gonna be talking about how to pass your HESI exam with nothing but free resources. Okay, I took my HESI exam. I didn't pay for anything that I used to study, and I passed, and I got into nursing school. So round of applause to me. So from here on out, while I'm in nursing school, I'm going to be making a nursing playlist that's just filled up with nursing hidden gems and secrets and just advantages that I learned throughout the program. But jumping right into the video, we're going to start off with requirements and what you should know before you even get into that testing site. Okay. First things first, you need to know your testing subjects. It differs by schools. I know my school, we tested on anatomy, physiology, math, reading, vocab, and critical thinking. You also need to know your needed score. Again, it differs by school. Some schools you need an 80 cumulatively or like overall, and then some schools you need a percentage in each section, because my school you needed to score an 80 in each section to be able to apply. Also need to know how many times you can take the test in 1 year, and also what is the waiting time in between those test times. So again, my school you can only take the test twice in 1 year, and you have to wait 30 days in between each testing date. Like I keep saying, it differs by school. I know some schools you can take it 3 times a year. I know some people who have unlimited tries, and then there's some people who had to wait a week. There's some people who had to wait 3 months. Like, you know how many times you can test and how long you have to wait before you can retest again. Finally, you need to know your deadline. And I'm saying this like it's not obvious, but you need to know your deadline just in case you take your test the first time and you need to retest. So you need to know how many days you have to wait to be able to retest and still make your deadline. So always keep in mind these factors while testing. Next is your game plan. If you're anything like my school, you had 4 hours to complete the test, the whole test, but you can do it in any order you want to. It's not like the ACT or the SAT where you had an hour to take math, an hour to take science. You have the whole 4 hours to finish the whole test, and you can like jump around. You just have to just finish one section, then you can choose whatever section you want next. So I say have a game plan, because for me, I went in, I took my most anxious subjects to like the easiest. So take your hardest to your easiest subjects. So I took anatomy and physiology first, because that was the section I was most worried about, and then I went to math, reading, vocab, critical thinking. That subject that's on your mind, that should be the first test you're taking. That should be the first subject, the first one that you're taking, because it's heavy on your mind. So just get that out the way, and then everything else should be a breeze. Okay, now let's start with which I really came here for. Let's get into it. First things first, like I said, my first subject that I took was anatomy and physiology. I ended up scoring a 100 on that section. The resources that I used to study for anatomy and physiology included YouTube, Quizlet, and NURSEHUB. And you're like, NURSEHUB, Johnny, don't you have here for NURSEHUB? Or what is NURSEHUB? Basically, NURSEHUB is a nursing resource, I guess, that is most nursing students and pre-nursing students use to study, because they have it for your HESI, your T's, and nursing subjects in general. And I was recommended NURSEHUB, and I checked it out. I didn't pay for it. When I went to study on it, I only did the free practice test and the free practice questions. Okay, I did not pay that $30. To each his own. I know a lot of people who did use NURSEHUB and still passed, and I'm one of the people who did not use it and still passed. So you know, I watched a whole lot of YouTube videos on what to expect and what is on it. So the first video I watched was this nurse Shai's video. She is like godsend. No shade, no tea on her, but because she has a anatomy and physiology HESI overview video, and I did watch it. I did take notes on it. She goes over the body systems, the organs, the accessory organs, what they do, and things of that nature. But like I said, no shade to her, because she was great. But if you use that video alone, you will not pass your exam, just because the test does not ask you what organs are in so-and-so system or what does so-and-so system do. They ask no questions, like absolutely no questions about it. Okay. Anyways, so basically how I ended up scoring a 100 in anatomy and physiology when that was my most anxious subject was I ended up going on YouTube, and this girl linked down below a quizlet that she used to study, and it just happened to be word for word, bar for bar, my exam. So anybody who is studying, about to take the test, I'm gonna link first of all, I'm gonna link everything down below. All the resources, all the YouTube videos, all the quizlets, everything's gonna be linked down below in the description box. So check that out if you're studying. But yes, I used that Quizlet, and I ended up scoring a 100% on my section. So do with that what you will. Okay. Next is math. Tomato. Anyways, I ended up scoring a 87 on my math section. Math was my worst subject. I've always struggled with math. That's just I always have to put in extra time, extra effort when it comes to math, because I don't grasp math like that. The math section was about 50 or maybe 55 questions. It took me like 2 hours. Math was the longest section that it took me to take. Like, the resources that I used to study for math was YouTube, Khan Academy, NURSEHUB. Again, for Khan Academy and NURSEHUB, again, I didn't pay for nothing, so I only did the free practice questions and a free practice test, and that's all I did. As for YouTube, I used Nurse Shai's math HESI overview section, and I want to say that is really the reason why I even passed my math section, just because Nurse Shai goes over every topic that could possibly be on the math section. She gives you practice problems, she gives you shortcuts, techniques, she just goes over everything. I had that video on repeat, literally, like, every day I was studying, I was practicing problems. When I was done with those practice problems, that's when I went on Khan Academy, typed in the subject, and practiced more practice problems, because that video was so good. If you're anything like me and you're really bad at math, you need to go check that video out and have it on repeat, because I promise you, by the time your test comes, you're gonna know what you're doing. Okay, you're gonna know what you're doing. But anyways, what consisted on the math section was about 30 of the questions were ratios, just straight up ratios. Okay, so know your ratios front and backwards, because that's what most of the test consists of. Next was about fractions. It was like adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions, and things of that nature. Next, we had percentages. Then there was like, I think it was military time, word problems. There's a couple more subjects, but again, go to Nurse Shai's video, because she goes over every possible topic that can be on that math section. Okay. Next was vocab. I feel like vocabulary was like really the hardest section for me to study, just because essentially you don't know which words are going to be on your test, right? I did end up scoring a 91. Of all the Quizlets and YouTube videos I watched, about 20% of the words that I had studied were on the test. So do with that what you will. I will have a link below, but do with that what you will. I'm gonna link the Quizlet that has like the most words that were on the test though. But anyways, in the on the vocab section, they were asking, what does so and so mean, or what does so and so mean in this sentence, or they would give you a definition and you had to click which word matched the definition. So that's what the vocab section looks like. And again, I also believe that was about 50 or maybe 55 questions. The next section was reading. I ended up scoring a 90% on reading. Reading section was basically like a SAT or ACT section. They just give you stories, and then they ask you questions about the stories, trying to see how you comprehend. That's basically just what it consisted of. I didn't use nothing to study for that, just because you don't know what stories you're going to get. You just have to know. Like, you can practice your comprehension skills and see if you're good at answering plot questions, but I didn't use anything to study for reading. And my last section was critical thinking. Critical thinking wasn't a part of the test, like incorporated into your score, but you had your own separate score for your critical thinking. My instructor told me to score as closely to 1,000 as possible, and I ended up scoring an 870. The critical thinking section, it might have been like 30 questions. So basically the critical thinking section just consisted of scenarios, and you had to decipher who has priority care. So they give you about 4 patients, and you have to like rank in order who you would go to first, who needs immediate care first, and that's all that section consisted of. And then you get your score, and again, I scored an 870. The last section is the results. If you've never taken the HESI or the TEAS exam, then you're probably gonna think like me that it's gonna be like paper and pencil or like on a Scantron. It is not on a Scantron. It is on the computer. So basically how you get your results is, okay, this is like a good and a bad thing, just because you get your results immediately after the section that you take. So for me, I'm gonna give you an example. I took anatomy first. Once I clicked end, you got your score, so my 100 popped up. Then you click your next section. So you don't have to wait until the end of your test to see what you scored in each section. You get it immediately after you finish that section. I say it's a good and a bad thing just because you're like, oh, okay, like if you're doing good, you're like, okay, I'm on the right track. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get to see your score like immediately after, and you're not anxious like, oh my gosh, did I pass, did I not? Like, you see it immediately after. And it's also bad just because, like, oh, you get your score immediately after. Like, oh, if you didn't score the score you needed and you see your score that you didn't pass, then it's just like, oh my gosh, I have to retake the test. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying it's like a good and bad thing. But yes, and then once you complete the test, your cumulative score is gonna come up, and then it's gonna rank in sections that the subjects that you struggled on and the topics that you did good on. And boom, your test is over, and you do what you do. You do what you do. You either go apply with that score or you try again. You feel me? I'm a prime example that you don't have to pay for the books and the tutors and the NURSEHUB. You can pass your test using nothing but free resources. There's so many YouTube videos. There's so many quizlets. Baby, you better go use the internet, babes. What are we? What are we? We Gen Z, baby. We use the internet. Okay. But I hope anybody who's applying, who's studying to get into nursing school, gets into their desired program. I hope all anxiousness, all nerves leave your body. I hope you know that you're good enough. I hope you know that you will get in. Okay, but anyways, bye. JY out. Hope y'all enjoyed it.